What do you think this might be?
All right, welcome everyone. We're just about to get started for the info session on applied digital geography and GIS. I am your host for today. My name is Mashur Chaudhry, and I am the manager of recruitment and sales for the Chang School. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the land on which Toronto Metropolitan University is built upon. Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. I thank the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island for their efforts to protect the land, and I deeply regret the past injustices they have endured. As Toronto Metropolitan University seeks to move forward in partnership with Indigenous peoples, I pledge to foster an environment that is more inclusive and welcoming of Indigenous peoples from all communities. Now I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's session. Your microphone is muted throughout the event so as not to disturb other attendees or our speakers. For the hearing impaired, we have automated captioning available, which you can access by activating it in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. You can submit questions for today's speakers at any time by typing them into the question box in your control panel. We'll collect them throughout the session and address them at the end of the presentation. Now I'd like to introduce our guest speakers for today. Raymond Garrison, Academic Coordinator and Lecturer at the Chang School. Next we have Bonnie Martins, Lecturer at the Chang School as well. And finally, Michelle Nguyen, a student of the certificate GIS Technician at ASI Archaeology. And we're really excited to have this amazing panel of speakers share their insights. Before I invite them to go over a quick overview of the certificate, we wanted to take a quick poll with our audience here and see where you are with your goals and motivations. So if you could take a couple of seconds to answer this quick poll, what motivated you to consider this certificate? We have career advancement as option number 1, career change, which is option number 2, skill building for current role, which is the next one, personal interest, and others. So we'll leave that on for just a few more seconds, and I really appreciate everyone taking part in this poll because it helps us provide feedback to our team and our speakers today. All right, so career change, that's the biggest one today. So thank you all for sharing that with us. Now I will invite our academic coordinator and lecturer, Raymond Garrison, and industry expert and lecturer at the Chang School, Bonnie Martins, to go over a brief overview of the certificate. Bonnie also teaches 2 of the courses in the certificate, so you're in really good hands to hear this overview. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mashur, and welcome everybody. Next slide, please. So first, I'm going to cover some quick facts, and I'll flesh out a little more detail on each of these points a little later in the presentation. So the course certificate is completely online, okay? And you take 6 courses. There are 2 required courses and 4 electives. On a subsequent slide, I'll show you the wide variety of courses you can take as the electives to tailor this certificate toward your interests. And the certificate takes generally between 1 to 2 years to complete. That is 3 to 6 terms, depending on which of the electives you want to take. The 2 core courses run every single term, CODG 101, which Bonnie teaches, and CODG 102, the 2 required courses. They run every term, but the electives rotate. So if it's not offered one particular term, you may have to wait to a subsequent term. But you do have 4 years in total to complete the certificate, which is 12 terms. Many people do finish it in 1 year because the courses they're interested in are available. So when you sign up for the course, you pay at the time that you sign up, and you only pay for that one particular course that you've signed up, or 2 courses or whatever. As soon as you sign up, you will pay basically taking it out of your cart and pay for the course. So if you add up the cost of the 6 courses, it varies between around $5,400 to $5,900. Next slide, please. So why learn GIS? Well, GIS, or Geographic Information Systems, is increasingly important as a planning tool because everything is spatial. We look at everything relative to where it is to other things. So, as it says here, it's not only important to know what's happening, but also to know where it's happening. GIS allows you to layer data on interactive maps so you can get a visual impression of the interrelationships among variables in a specific area. So you can see this little graphic I have here. You have zoning, you have the location of wetlands, you have the location of roads and the built form and so forth. And you can understand correlations between these variables across space. I'm going to give you one very, very brief example that I'm sure we can all relate to because we lived through the COVID-19 global pandemic. So in the city of Toronto, one of the things they needed to know is where they should situate the clinics for vaccination, right? So they looked at the city of Toronto, for example, and looked at vaccination rates in different areas of the city and the locations of the centers. And based on that, they decided, well, perhaps we should open another center in this particular area, or perhaps vaccination rates are a little low over here. Perhaps we should make the hours at that particular center 24 hours to give people greater access. So, and this was very dynamic. So they, at a particular point in time, they'd get a shot, a snapshot of what's happening out there. But then by running this analysis continuously throughout the global pandemic, they could see how things changed over time. And this information is an example of how GIS analysis can feed directly into decision-making processes and ultimately the development of policy response options. Next slide, please. So industry trends and career paths. Bonnie will speak more to this, but these are some examples of job titles that you may find when you're looking for a position utilizing your GIS skills. So decision support analyst and specialist, GIS analyst, specialist, technician or researcher, location analyst, research analyst, spatial database technician analyst, geospatial data scientist, or crime analyst or criminal intelligence analyst. So our graduates do find jobs in both government and private sectors and also in non-governmental organizations. And there's a growing demand for GIS professionals in all industries, as you'll see as this presentation proceeds. Next slide, please. So what you'll learn from us, this is a university-based GIS certificate program, right? So it provides advanced data interpretation and analytical skills, offering a competitive edge over programs that focus solely on mapping. Many college programs focus solely on mapping skills, but not on the analytical and interpretation skills, so that it does feed directly into policy. Graduates will be equipped to produce GIS-based analyses that can feed directly into decision-making. As I said, you'll gain in-demand skills for the job market by mastering the latest industry standard GIS software. ArcGIS Pro is the standard software, and we're using the latest version in the industry today. And also QGIS, Bonnie uses that. You're introduced to that in 101, the first course you'll take, and then ArcGIS as well, ArcGIS Online, sorry. And later on, we do have a course if you choose to take it, CODG 132, where you'll learn Python skills, and you can use those Python skills to customize the GIS program to do things that you want to do. You also, along with learning to utilize GIS software, you learn data management skills, and you also learn or have opportunities to make presentations, and you collaborate with your instructors and other people in the class. So you gain that experience as well. And we do work with a variety of real world data, spatial data sets. And there's a lot of latitude for your own creativity in applying your analyses. Bonnie can say a lot more about that. Next slide, please. So I'm passing it over to Bonnie now.
Great. Thanks, Raymond. So here we're looking at the practical skills for real world problems. So the certificate is going to offer you the opportunity to demonstrate that you have mastered GIS software and tools, right? So if you look at a lot of these job listings that are out now, and they say, you must have, and it provides a list of all the different programs. Here you have an opportunity to show potential employers that you do have what it takes to do the job, right? Like Raymond said, we are using the latest software. And I am also using QGIS. So if you end up working for an organization that perhaps doesn't have the funds for an Esri license, right? Because Esri, of course, is very expensive. It's very expensive, I know, even for education purposes, to make sure that we have the latest and greatest for our students. But I know that having something like QGIS gives students an opportunity if they do end up going to work for, a non-governmental organization, that they do have the opportunity to learn this software. You being able to visualize the data and analyze the data spatially. So this program is going to allow you to take these very large, complex data sets and be able to create these wonderful maps, these wonderful spatial analytical displays that you aren't necessarily going to get in a lot of other programs. I'm all about this in my job. In outside of academia, I often used GIS as a tool for analysis, not necessarily to create pretty maps. I wasn't putting dots on a map a lot of times. I was actually using it as a tool, and I'm very, very big into that, especially the um, the second course that I teach, CODG 127. The creating the map sometimes is secondary. We're going to learn how to use this as a tool, right? Same with the problem solving here, that the last one, where we're talking about delivery routes and predicting the spread of disease. Like Raymond had mentioned about the COVID crisis. In 127, we look at how to model some of this data, and we look at I've got Jay fever, blue jays, right? And how it might spread. And then you can also use the same tools to look at other ways that disease might not just spread, but also how it should be modeled, and then how we can tackle the problem, right? Like with vaccination clinics. So, next slide. And this is your opportunity to future-proof some of your skills, right? You are going to be learning, you're going to be getting some specialized knowledge here, right? The certificate program demonstrates your expertise in spatial data analysis and geospatial technologies, and it's going to set you apart, right, in a very, very competitive market in some cases. We are going to, or I'm going to mention this on another slide here. Um, TMU grads know what TMU grads learn, right? And a lot of times we end up hiring each other, as I think Michelle might say or might talk about. I'm going to pull her in there. And the certificate program offers you some interdisciplinary relevance, right? So we are going to integrate a lot of different fields, right? Like we're going to be talking about AI in our second course, the second course that I teach. We talk about AI. We're going to be talking about the Internet of Things and big data. The thing with these courses, big data being the buzzword, this is big data, but we're analyzing it spatially. Okay, so this is something to always keep your mind on, and it's going to make sure that you've got some long-term career relevance, right? And adaptability, right? TMU certified GIS professionals, you're going to be equipped to pivot into a lot of emerging fields, right? Like we've got here smart cities, modeling climate impacts, monitoring environmental changes, tracking disease spread, managing healthcare resource allocations. I know that in the courses that I teach, we look directly at many of these topics, and being able to say that you've worked on these types of activities will definitely help you in your career. So, next slide. So this is your opportunity to give yourself the competitive edge or a competitive edge. One thing that Michelle, I want you to jump in and talk about is your portfolio development, right? So the certificate program in these courses, it offers you a chance to put together, some tangible evidence, of skills that you have or that you've developed for interviews. Right. So I know that Michelle ended up contacting me and saying, "Hey, that's a project that I worked on. Do you still have the link for it?" And, we were able to provide it to her. And I hope that that helped, right, in your interview. And credential validation. So this is your signal to employers that you've completed formal university level training, right, in geospatial tools and concepts. So that's something that's important, right? And it offers your employer some confidence, right? It assures employers, of consistent quality skills that are aligned with industry standards. So we try very hard to make sure that the software that we use is up to date. Is the what we're offering students is what is important for their career. And yeah, so we're all very very passionate about this topic. I have a lot of experience in GIS. I took my own first GIS course back in 1989, and I've been working directly in the field since then. It's something that's very, very passionate to me, and I know to all of the instructors that you're going to have. So next slide, please. I think this is my last one, Raymond? So this will make sure that you're job ready, right? So you have the opportunity for collaboration and networking with fellow students and industry professionals. I try most years. Sometimes it's harder than others to have a guest speaker series in my 101 and 127 classes so that people have an opportunity to meet some of the industry professionals and to see what they're working on. And you do have other opportunities to work with some of your fellow students. The one great thing, which I didn't know until fairly recently, actually, that you, as a TMU student in the Chang School, you actually have access to the Career Co-op and Student Success Center. I don't know if you want to talk more about that, Raymond, because I didn't know about that until fairly recently. So I don't even know what it involves. So, but this is my last slide, so you can jump in.
Yes, you can actually go to the Career Center and register there, and they will help you try to find some positions because the university itself gets contacted by various employers looking for people to fill positions, and
Mhm.
they'll help make that link. So, who should take the certificate? So, those looking to upgrade their skills or make a career change, we saw from the poll at the beginning of this presentation that a lot of you want to make a career change. And I'll jump down to the last point for a moment here and say you do not need any prior experience with GIS or statistics. You do know, you do, of course, need to know how to use your computer, how to find files and things like that, basic computer skills, but you do not need any previous skill with GIS or statistics. It's also a good certificate for recent university grads starting out in the GIS industry. We have people coming from wide variety of disciplines, and they just want to hone their specific skills because the courses allow you to engage in hands-on activities. Um, so they're basically honing their skill set within their broader discipline. such as urban planning, such as geography. We have people coming from history. We even have people coming from anthropology, um, a wide variety of disciplines. The only requirement is that you have to have an undergraduate degree in order to enroll or a college diploma, but it can be in almost anything. And also those new to Canada looking to build a new career, because this is a vibrant and growing field. Next slide, please. So the certificate course structure, so it's designed to be completed around your schedule. It is a part-time certificate. Generally speaking, you take up to 2 courses per term. If you want, you can take just 1 course. That's perfectly fine. Just see how it goes. And then maybe the next term take one and so forth. As I said, you have 12 terms to complete the 6 courses. Or you could take 2. I wouldn't recommend taking any more than 2 because the workload may be a bit heavy. It all depends on the individual, how much time they have. The courses are asyncratic, so you can largely asynchronous, as it says here, and they're online. But there are synchronous components, as Bonnie said, where you can meet other people working in the field or interact with students and so forth. So it depends on your schedule, right? Whether or not you're going to be engaging with the course after work in the evening or maybe on in the morning time, depending on what your work schedule is. So it's very flexible. But as I say, I recommend that you don't take any more than 2 courses. Um, Now, the software that we're talking about is the latest software. And as Bonnie said, it's can be quite costly, but you don't have to worry about that because part of your course fee, there's no additional course fee, okay? You have access to the software through Toronto Metropolitan University's state-of-the-art virtual desktop. So you log into the virtual desktop and utilize the software for all of the courses that we have, not just the 3 softwares that I mentioned here, and I mentioned Python as well. All the software used in any of our courses you have access to through the virtual desktop. Um, and if you're unsure, as the last point says here, you can try out a course, try out CODG 101, Bonnie's course. So there's a fabulous instructor, Ian Williams, who teaches CODG 102. Those are the introductory courses. You can take the 2 together or in any order. You can do 102 before 101, doesn't matter the order for those 2 courses. And the only caveat is that before you enroll in your 4th course, you would have to register for the certificate. So you could take up to 3 courses and still not be registered in the certificate program. But before you take your 4th course, and basically go beyond 50% of the certificate, you must enroll in the certificate if you choose to do so. Okay, so there's some flexibility there just to try it out and see if it's for you. Next slide, please. So this is what I meant about the electives. They're very, very wide ranging. And you'll see on the website, and I won't get into the details here, that you have a certain number of courses that you must have from these 2 basic categories, right? But you can see for professional applications, utilities planning, business decision making, municipal applications, a very popular course, environmental management, also very popular, and community and social services. That's Bonnie's course, CODG 127. Then on the skills development side, I mentioned customizing GIS software applications programming, which uses Python. There's also digital image processing and applications using drone images and things like that as well. Web mapping, map algebra, spatial database management systems is a very popular course as well because it brings in that skill set for handling large data sets when working with GIS. And then spatial statistical methods. Next slide, please. So just to sum up the program highlights, this certificate offers theoretical education and practical training that you need for a successful career as a GIS professional. There's flexibility with a wide variety of course options. And an important point to bring in here is that learning in the course is incremental, okay? So usually the courses have around 13 modules that you work on, and each module has some hands-on activities. It has a self-test and a small assignment at the end. So the learning is very, very gradual. So you will master that module before going on to the next one. And I was speaking to a graduate the other day who said, they were sort of bewildered by GIS, but by the time they got to the end of the first course, it was Bonnie's course, they said, wow, I've come so far, and it's not only because of the way Bonnie teaches, but it's also Bonnie also designed the course, right? And all our courses are like this, incremental. So the learning is very gradual. So you'll never feel lost, and our instructors are always available to help you. And most courses have at the end a major project as well, which can go into the portfolio that Bonnie was speaking of that you can show to employers. So our instructors are highly motivated, experienced industry professionals and academic leaders in GIS. Um, and just to sum up, you will have analytical, presentation, data management skills, collaboration and network opportunities, portfolio development, all alongside your increasing GIS skill set. And that's it. Back to you, Monsieur.
Brilliant. No, thank you so much to both Raymond and Bonnie for sharing that overview. I love how it's a multi-sectoral approach and how hands-on we are with the data and real-world scenarios. Really exciting stuff. Now it's my pleasure to introduce one of our students of the certificate and GIS technician at ASI Archaeological and Cultural Heritage Services, Michelle Nguyen. Michelle will share some of her experiences. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hi, Michelle. Hi.
Hello. I'm
Thank you for
actually in the
doing
office.
this. Thank you
Oh,
for
of
doing this
course.
with
Of
us. Yes, thank
course.
you.
Um, I've prepared a little bit of a few things.
Yeah, absolutely. Go
And
ahead.
then
Right.
I'm going to jump in and pepper you with questions.
Please, please. Okay, so I did the certificate from winter of 2023 to winter of 2024. I didn't have anything else going on, so I decided to do two courses per term. And I basically chose this program. I decided to get to GIS because at the time I was a field archaeologist. And if anyone here works outside, they know it's pretty hard on your body. It's seasonal, so the pay wasn't great. But I still wanted to stay within the field, and GIS was a niche in the career that I was already pursuing. So, in a way, it was a career change where I went from someone who worked outside to someone who uses GIS and works indoors. But really, and I think the main thing that I've learned is every single sector, every single interest that you have, whether it's, crime, whether it's environmental things, urban planning, whatever it is, they all require GIS. So you will be a-okay when it comes to balancing what you're passionate about and what is a long and sustainable career. So that's why I chose to do GIS, because it meant that I could stay within archaeology for a longer period of time. And I chose the Chang School because as I was doing my research on which program to do in Ontario, the name just kept coming up. It was everywhere. I think there was also like a couple other schools, but really, this is the one that most people had gone through. And as mentioned by Bonnie earlier, um, employers recognize this certificate and they trust the skills that it develops. They know what to expect. And so you will become a safe hire. They'll see you and they'll know what skills you have. They'll know maybe even the professors that you had. They'll know the foundation that you have in GIS and what they can build off of. It's also a point of shared experience when you're networking. I got my job because I cold messaged a whole bunch of people in a company, and I said, "Hi, my name is Michelle. I see you also did the GIS certificate with the Chang School," and from there, I was able to talk with them about their experience, and that leads into really, more job openings, more networking opportunities. Um, some things that I've noticed in my time here, in the current job that I have, is that um, this course or this certificate covers everything that is currently going on in the field. Um, the programming course, that if you were able to, and I had a lot of trouble, but if you were able to program tools in GIS, you will be an essential partner in your team, whatever job. That is a huge, huge asset. And a lot of people say they can do it, and then they can't do it. Um, if you are able to do that to a degree where you are, creating tools and customizing the outputs, um, you'll be indispensable. And so this course gives a really, really thorough introduction to programming specifically for ArcGIS, which again, as Raymond mentioned, is the industry standard. I use Arc every single day. It's intuitive, it's easy, and this course gives you that this certificate gives you that opportunity to use Arc when it would cost you thousands of dollars a year. It's also it also covers like data management, which will be essential for every role. Online, ArcGIS Online, I use that every day as well because you're taking information from the fields into your computer. Same thing with the imaging course. In terms of jobs, and this will tie in with the electives that are offered. So most of the listings now are from municipalities and engineering companies. So if you have any interest in urban planning, utilities, anything like that, you are in the right space for it. This program gives you very, very specific courses so that you have all the skills that, maybe wouldn't be touched on in another course. But if that's what you're trying to get into, it's exactly what you need. And then in terms of maybe like advice for future students, I don't know. I think that again, like whatever you're interested in, there is a GIS aspect. You are now a, healthcare professional with a new skill that is very niche. It makes you a special candidate. It makes employers look at you and say, oh, there are so many, for example, healthcare professionals. There are so many construction workers or whatever it is that you do. But this skill set and this set of skills means that you are not only more hireable, but that you are more indispensable because you have the ability to do things that other people in the same field don't have the ability to do. The portfolio, as Bonnie mentioned, was a huge thing for me. I submitted 2 different assignments, one that was online with Bonnie, and then one for another course, the map algebra course, that was layout. I brought both of those to my employer, not only on the day of the interview, but even before that. I said, hi, I'm applying for this job. This is my resume. Here is my portfolio. That shows them exactly what you can do. And they'll know, what level you're at because of the analyses tools, because of the design of the layout, things like that. It's basically evidence of, I can do this. Look at what I can do. And again, having a portfolio, it should be something that's ongoing. So as you work, as you, go further in your career, your portfolio is something you continually build. But to even have one before you've gotten your first GIS job is incredible. And all of these courses will give you things that you can add to your portfolio. I guess in terms of jobs, I would reach out now. Even your professors are your number one resource. I had Bonnie as a professor. I've spoken with a few of my professors, and they're all so eager to help you. If you want references for jobs, if you even want to use any of the TMU resources regarding connecting you with professionals, everybody is so eager to help you that you could start now making a list of the places you want to apply to, or again, working on that portfolio, or just getting your professors to help you with personal projects that you're interested in that are outside of the course. Any one of those things will not only further your career, but it builds that circle of people around you who know who you are and know what you do. Because at the end of the day, all your professors are industry professionals, and that's what they're there for. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
Michelle, that's awesome. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things that you said.
For sure.
That is, I'm here for references, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as well, if because I forgot to mention it earlier, that's the role I see for myself as well. That if later you need a job reference. Okay. Because I can see this person has finished all of this work. they did it timely, they were polite, their emails were nice and professional. They answered in the things in the discussion board. I've offered all sorts of references for people in for employment, but also if people are interested in, for example, going to grad school, they want to continue with a master's degree or something like that. I have offered that for many people, and many people have progressed in their education. So thanks for mentioning that because that is something that I feel like that is my role as well. Teaching you some stuff GIS, but also being there, as that support person. So and I want to touch on as well. You said about you now have a niche skill. That is actually what happened with myself. Because I worked in the criminal intelligence field for many, many years. And they would look up my resume and they would say, oh, yeah, this person has, 15 years, 20 years, working this. Oh, wait, she has GIS skills. And they put me on a different pile. So I ended up, getting some of these roles that I hadn't even applied for because I had GIS skills because I was a student. I think, I don't think I mentioned this or that was mentioned. I took these courses myself, back way, way back. And that helped me in my career when I was first starting out. So the only other thing I want to mention before anybody else says, um, I don't think it was mentioned, but there are some other people in your workplace that may have taken these courses.
Yeah,
What
my boss, my
Mhm.
direct manager also took it. And then the person who I contacted initially to get that interview with the manager, he also took it as well. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So,
Awesome.
TMU grads, hire TMU grads. I'm sure that, once you progress a little bit and you're hiring your own crew, who are you going to look at? Right? You're going to look at people
Exactly.
that you've taken the courses yourself. You have an idea of, the background that people will have. So thanks, Michelle. Does
Yeah, of
anybody else
Thank
want to
you.
say anything? I know I monopolized it. I just had so many questions that I wanted to
course.
ask Michelle.
That's okay. That's all right. We do have a lot of questions in our Q&A box from our attendees, which we want to get to as well. So yeah, we'll just jump right in. That ends our presentation portion. So the first question is, I'll just get to Michelle because there's a couple of questions for her. First is, what electives did you choose? And also, how is GIS used in archaeology?
Oh, okay. So the electives I chose, I think I did three of them. I did the programming course, which I did horrible in, but it was very, very useful because it gave me at least a base understanding of how these things are done, even though I couldn't do it myself. The other one that I did was map algebra. And then the last one I did was the spatial statistics, which was intense and very, very useful. Regarding GIS and archaeology. Everything in archaeology is GIS. When, just as an example, we have it's called ArcGIS field maps. So we have people go out in the field with their phone or a tablet and their big GPS, and in this field map, they can add data directly to it. So when I'm sitting in my desk, I can go and pull from ArcGIS into ArcPro because they're all under this Esri bubble, and I can see, oh, they found a flakes lithic here, or they found an arrowhead here, or this is, where the units are. And it has to get really precise, especially when you're working with, well, in Ontario archaeology, we dig units. And so you want the 1 meter by 1 meter to fit on a grid. But specifically regarding more sensitive sites, your burials, your human remains, your longhouses, things like that need a GPS coordinate, and from there, we take those coordinates, we put it on the map, and we make it look all pretty. Um, and then we submit that to the Ministry of Culture and Heritage. And that's how it is in Ontario, at least. But that applies for all of archaeology. If you can find it somewhere on Earth, you can put it in the computer and make a map of it.
Raymond, don't you want to come and go on a field trip to
It'd be great.
Michelle's workplace and go see this? Like, what? Tell me more.
I just want to make a comment about COGG 132. Um, a little about a year ago, it underwent a full redevelopment by the person who has been teaching the course for more than 20 years. And they worked along with the digital education strategy team at the Chang School. And it is really streamlined and much smoother than it was. So, yeah. And there's been a lot of interest in that because, of course, Python is a very hot thing to know
Yes.
in general.
That's a
And the
great
professor held my
segue.
hand the whole way through as
Yeah,
well. Like he was very kind
Mike
with
McDonald is the
everything.
professor. He's excellent.
Yes. Mhm.
Super nice
That's
guy.
great segue because our next question is there any in-person field work or peer tutoring available?
There's no in-person field work because it's done completely online. Peer tutoring, not really, would you say, Bonnie? I would say there's peer collaboration and interaction,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
not
and yeah,
tutoring.
tutoring isn't no. I know in some of the classes, some people have created their own um sessions online and they get together online. If they want to do it, go ahead. I encourage it. But we do have a in my courses we've got a public Q&A section, where people are encouraged, like, help each other. We're all here to work together. You may come up with a question that I don't even know where you're coming from, with this question. And a lot of times, the students will jump in and say, oh yeah, hey, what about this? And then we can work through things together. I'm online. I like to say, only 10 hours. I'm online all the time. 3 o'clock in the morning, and if I'm awake, I'm checking my email, I'm checking the public discussion board, and so that we can all work together. And we have students from all over the world. So people often will sign in and jump into questions 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock. It doesn't really, time doesn't exist, in these courses. So, but yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I mean by your professors are dedicated to you in a way that many are not.
Yeah. We try. We try.
You saved my life so many times.
I'm glad. I'm glad. And I was so happy. Yeah, you don't understand, Michelle. I think I mentioned this last time where, you said that you got the interview, and I'm like, yes, you've got the interview. I'm so happy that at least you got like a foot in the door, and
Mhm.
then when you said that you got the job, I did a happy dance in my kitchen for you, and then I forwarded it to Raymond, that you had got the job, and he forwarded it to somebody else because we were all so happy,
Yes.
when we hear success stories like this.
Well,
So,
there's so
yeah.
many of us out there from this specific
Well,
certificate.
sometimes, like, I'm not a brain surgeon, I'm not a heart surgeon, I'm not saving people, people's lives, but I try to help a little bit, to help with their careers because I do know that it makes a difference, right? So you getting a job, this is setting you on a path to having a great future, and I want that for all of my students. It makes me very, very happy. Yeah.
It's amazing, yeah, and this dedication and the stories like this is why we do what we do. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. So I know we're almost at time, but we have a couple of more questions which we love to get to. The first one is if someone who has done a master's in GIS back in 2015 from outside of Canada, for them, is there any requirements or if they can come and start already? And also, for someone who has, 4 years experience as a GIS analyst as well from outside of Canada, um, they want to know, what advice would you give to a newcomer like them?
Well, I'll jump in here very quickly and say that if you've already got a master's in GIS or you've been working in the GIS field for a long time and you have taken courses, you can always apply for transfer credits for CODG 101 and 102, the two introductory courses, usually not for the higher courses, but for the introductory courses. Although I must say, some people opt to still take them because of the unique approach that we have and the interaction that we have. It's the latest software. There are a lot of benefits to still taking them, even though you have GIS experience. So it is possible to apply for a transfer credit for those two courses. But as I say, a lot of people don't. They just take them anyway
Love
as a
that.
refresh, basically. And as I say, Bonnie brings in, and so does Ian, a wide variety of examples and data sets that even though you've taken a course similar to it, you may not have been exposed that broadly before.
We have a couple of more questions for Michelle, our star today. One from Alok, thank you for your question, and one from Jennifer. So the first one is, how does the job hunt look like when you were hunting for your job, and what type of support you received? I know Bonnie touched on that as well, and also, what does a typical day look like in your current job?
Okay, well, the job hunt, I'll start with that one. The job hunt was, okay, well, we all know we're in a bit of a recession. So lots of jobs posted, mainly again from municipalities, city of Newmarket, Richmond Hill, Toronto, whatever it is. They're always looking for people. Um, I also looked at internships at very specific companies. So, for example, Trimble is a company that makes surveying equipment. You can contact the companies you're interested in. I would go to WSP, I would go to Stantec, these engineering companies, and I would say, when is the opening for your internships? And then you can apply that. Um, there were a lot of places I applied to because there were a lot of places that were listed. I would say that if you don't receive a reply, don't feel bad. It happens. Um, I also looked on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is good because it shows you who has, if you put in, you got your Chang School of Continuing Education certificate in GIS, it will show who has that same certificate when you look at their profile. And that is how I connected with people. I would cold message them and I would say, hi, my name is this. I'm interested in getting into the field. Even if there's no listing, even if there's no job listing, you say, this is my name, this is who I am. I see that you also took the certificate. I am interested in the field. And that's how you start your conversations. So that's, again, a benefit to choosing this program because people have it. A lot of people have it in Southern Ontario. And then I actually reached out to my professors and I said, hey, I am looking for jobs. I think I messaged them or I emailed them, I think 2 to 3 months ahead of time. And I said, I'm looking for jobs. Is there anywhere that you can refer me? And I got one for the TRCA because I said that I was interested in environmental sciences. But again, Bonnie is a criminal analyst. Just message your professors, email them and say, I really am looking for job opportunities after I graduate. Is there anywhere where, you could refer me or anywhere that has an opening? Again, these are current professionals in the field. And then the other question was, what is a typical day? Oh, okay. So I mostly do map layouts. I use ArcGIS Pro every day, the same one that this certificate uses. I mainly do layouts. So I take data and I just make them look pretty. I also do online uploads of those maps for people who are going into the fields and collecting that data. And that's where, having knowledge about the field you're in helps because knowing how your data is collected is essential to knowing how that data can be used. Which is why wherever your experience is, that is important. And that gives you a leg up in the industry. I also do some spatial analytics regarding, I use LiDAR every day, the cloud point data, all of that stuff. And then there are some days when I go out and I get to use my surveying equipment. That is a really nice day. That isn't covered here because it's a completely different, it's geomatics engineering instead of GIS. But again, collecting the data is knowing how to use it. And this program teaches you how to use it essentially and how it's collected. So yeah, that's a day in my life. I finished a work day today and it was very nice. So yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for that. I know we're a little bit over time, but it was really great conversation. I loved the questions that we got and all of the answers and insights provided by all the experts that are present here today. If there's anything else you'd like to add, please go ahead and do that now before I do my closing remarks. Okay.
That's
All
it.
right.
It's all good.
We are
Yeah.
good to go. Okay, well, there's a last poll that we want to run just to get some more feedback from all of our attendees today. While I do my closing remarks, if you could just answer how likely are you to take a course from this certificate? And then all I want to say is thank you so much to our guest speakers, and thank you all for taking the time on a Friday evening and attending our online session today. If you're interested to learn more about this certificate, please visit our website at continuing.torontomu.ca. And if you have any other questions, please contact me directly at mash.chaudhry@torontomu.ca. The contact information and the recording of this session will be sent to you along with the survey within 24 to 48 hours. And on behalf of all of our speakers and presenters, thank you for joining us. Have a great rest of the day and happy weekend.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Mm.
Bye, everyone.